Hello, everybody. This is Sherry Levon with the Soul's Bright House and She Will Heal Outreach Ministry, where we are about healed people, heal people. And I'm so honored today because we have a special guest in the house, and we're excited about our authors that we currently have promoted. Um, in this day and age, we are living in a time where people um, are becoming more and more aware of being an author. And I just think it's so rewarding. And so we're going to tap in to this book, How It All Ends. Our author here, as you can see, I'm pulling this book up so you can actually see this book, because this book will be available on Kindle Unlimited. A lot of you all that pay says to yourself, well, I can't I can't buy everybody's books. Well, the good thing about these books today is that you are able to go onto Kindle Direct Unlimited, and you're able to pay $11.99 a month. The first 3 months is free, but for $11.99 a month, you can go in and download any book, read any book unlimited, and the author gets paid by the page. So it don't even hurt when somebody else reads it, Dr. Richard, because at the end of the day, you get paid by the page. So I'm like, I kind of like when you turn the page, I get paid, and then you stop, then you come back, and then you let someone else read it, and you're still getting paid by the page. So that's a really great way for people who are interested in reading books. Um, we're going to start off with some points for this interview, and you guys can also catch this on our podcast on Monday. And you will also be able to hear this interview on Sunday on kingdompurposeradio.com this coming Sunday at 4 p.m. So, on this book, How It All Ends, it's called Hamas. Is that how you said Hamas or Hamas?
Hamas.
Hamas. So, will the Hamas war with Israel escalate?
Well, it already has, because the Hezbollah has jumped in and is joining. Both of those groups are funded by Iran, which is in Bible prophecy in Daniel 8. When Christ was asked about the end of the world, he said that we should study and understand the book of Daniel. And in the 8th chapter, there's a vision at the time of the end. And it is about the Hebrew word is kazon vision, because there are two visions in that chapter. The kazon is a conflict between a ram and a goat. The ram is a Muslim ram pushing from the Middle East, north like into Russia, south like into Africa, and west like Europe and the New World. Okay, countries in those areas are feeling the pressure from Muslim people, refugees, etc., and they're trashing the countries like in France, etc. So we see this pushy ram, and it angers a goat that flies from the west and stomps the ram, breaks its horns. And in verse 20 of Daniel 8, it says, the horns on the ram are the kings of Media and Persia. Well, Media was Iraq. We did it. Okay, we broke the king, Saddam, he's gone. And Iran is next. Okay, that's Persia. That up until around 1920, it was known as Persia. Then they changed the name to Iran. But we're going there as a result of what they're going to do to Jerusalem. Okay, because Turkey's president Erdogan has already appealed for 57 Muslim nations to siege Israel. He said, we have enough people to take this. You know, it's just a little nation, and Israel is surrounded. So the point is that it's going to happen, and anybody with a Bible can look up Zechariah. It's next to the last chapter. If you go from Matthew back to Malachi, and one more page is Zechariah 14, day of the Lord comes. And all nations are going to be gathered against Jerusalem. I don't think it's literal. Americans won't be against them, but all Muslim nations, maybe, all neighboring nations, yes. And they will take the city, it says. And the houses will be rifled, the women raped, half the city goes into captivity. And then the Lord is going to act, okay? I can imagine, in my opinion, that the Muslims will celebrate their mosque and the Quran, which says Allah has no son, when suddenly The Lord will roar from Jerusalem, the heavens and earth will shake, and they will flee in verse 5 of Zechariah 14. They'll get out of there. But that earthquake that shakes the heavens and earth initiates the end time day of the Lord, okay, the last 7-year period. The day of the Lord is really an extension of night of the Lord when God judged Egypt. In Exodus 12, verse 42, God said, this is night of the Lord. Well, as day follows night, so will the end times follow what God did in Egypt, and it's going to be similar in some ways. Not in every particular, of course. The Bible says that, I like this in Ecclesiastes 3:15 in the New English Bible. I like the wording. What is to come has been already, and God summons each event back in its turn. And so, yes, we're going to see judgment because America is like Egypt, okay?
Yes.
Egypt enslaved Israel and threw their babies in the river. America has enslaved most people in
Yes.
substances like alcohol, tobacco, drugs, even medical care. And I can say this because I'm an MD physician that has prescribed for many years, but I see it now as a form of bondage. If you have to go to the doctor every month, it's good for the doctor's pocketbook, but it's not good for yours. And the drugs he's going to prescribe are not good for you either, okay? They don't address the cause, they address symptoms. And sooner or later, you're going to be on a very slippery slope. The more pills you take, the physician's desk reference is about 4 inches thick of oversized pages with fine print of side reactions, contraindications, pregnancy warnings, and so on like that. I'm talking to you as one who lost his wife from a prescription for an antibiotic she took 3 days for a bladder infection. I was retired already. She went to see her doctor, got a prescription for an antibiotic that she didn't need beyond the 3rd day, but months later had a rash, saw her doctor, got a blood test, and he referred her urgently the next morning to a hematologist who did a bone marrow exam in the hospital and then took out her spleen and treated her with high steroids and transfusions until she died of a stroke. All from an antibiotic, only drug she took for 3 days. And it's more common than you would ever imagine because the media don't like to report these things. Their sponsors are the drug companies, pharma. Every evening news, you see, they sponsor it and they don't report those kind of things. Rare that they do. So anyway, that's the long story short for big trouble and why America is like Egypt, deserving of judgment. But when Egypt threw maybe a few hundred, few thousand babies in the river, America has thrown 63 million babies in the trash since Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade was 50 years ago. 50 years ago is a Jubilee event. And when they got out of Egypt, it was Jubilee. Okay. It was a Jubilee event where they are freed from bondage and they have a promise of restoration to their land. That's what happened when God took them to the promised land from Egypt. And I thought originally that this earthquake that is coming, Day of the Lord, and by the way, the first place you find a word or phrase, it often has a context or meaning for end times because in Revelation 1:11, it says Christ is Alpha and Omega, first and last. He's also the Word. And so if you go where the word is first found or phrase, it often has a meaning for end time. Go to where the day of the Lord is first found is Isaiah 2:12. And in verse 19, it says God is going to shake terribly the earth. I mean, we're going to be punished. There were a half a dozen signs in 2015 pointing to end times. When it says 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 3 says, when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes. That was the Iran nuclear deal. Christ said, when you see the abomination standing in the holy place, that was the Pope. Because in Jerusalem, the holy place was where the law was kept in the ark. But the Pope came to where the laws were made in the U.S. Congress. He was standing there. And another abomination, really, if you accept Moses' writings in Leviticus 18th chapter, verse 22, to lie mankind with mankind as womankind is an abomination. And that abomination had standing where it should not either, in Supreme Court. New definition of marriage. Guess what? We're going to get it, okay? And I'm just saying we're in big trouble, and it's coming. I thought the earthquake would come this spring because Passover is a time of judgment, but I believe, and I understand that when God talked to Moses in Exodus 12:2, he said, "This is the beginning of the month, the first month of the year." It was springtime. It wasn't January in the middle of winter. And
Right.
so this year extends from springtime now to next spring. And I believe we will see what's already started by Hamas and Hezbollah. And even yesterday, I saw a headline picture from Yemen, with Yemen's army already focused on Israel. Okay. I don't know if they got there yet or what, but I'm just saying things are escalating. This is not going to be a happy thing for Israel, because they're going to lose, basically.
To lose. Well, first, I'd like to say my condolences to losing your wife. Because so many people in the medical field, there's so many people that are losing their life. We about lost my mom this May, and it's amazing how quickly they want you to give up on your loved one. And we fought for her. We did not even leave her alone at nighttime, because you just, leaving the people in the hands of these on ventilators and tracheas and things like that. I've just learned we have to take a stand, and I wouldn't leave my mom's side. So that really grieves my spirit that people are on medications, and they be on medications for a very long time, and it doesn't resolve the problem. They continue back and back to the hospital, and so, like you said before, they're treating the actual symptom, but they're not treating the cause to make it go away. So it's like a little band-aid on it. So our condolences to you. Um, Second question I would ask is, will Israel survive this?
The answer is not as we know it, because they are not Israel. We call them Israel,
Right.
but Israel means overcomers and so on. A messianic rabbi told me 90% of the people in Israel today have no interest in their spiritual heritage. 8% are Orthodox Jews that would spit on the name of Christ. That doesn't leave very many people.
No.
And truthfully, as I consider it, they we think that God did a wonderful thing to get them back to the land, but it wasn't God. It was the UN that gave them free land, and they're there for the free land, and
Right.
they don't care about God, basically. And the truth is that they didn't read in their book of Moses' writings. Leviticus 26 chapter says, "If you walk contrary to me," God said, "I will punish you 7 times over." And Ezekiel, the 4th chapter, verses 5 and 6, it tells how long they walk contrary. Ezekiel was asked to lie on his side 390 days, each day for a year, that Israel was in apostasy. So if he's going to punish them 7 times over, 7 times 390 years is 2,730 years they were to be in exile. And Sennacherib came and took the northern tribes, the house of Rehoboam was going to tax the people heavily, and 10 tribes split off. They didn't want to pay the heavy taxes. They formed the northern house of Israel, while Judah was the southern house with Benjamin, the 2 tribes. And the point is that Sennacherib came in 722 BC, and if you subtract it from 2730, that is uh, 2008, but there's no year zero. It's really 2009, when they would have been free to return to their land after the exile, according to God's timing. But in that year, Pope Benedict shows up as a sign to flee. The early believers understood that when Rome showed up, it was a time to get out of Jerusalem, and they fled and were spared the siege by Titus, Roman general. Okay, well, the Roman general came, to Jerusalem in 2009, Benedict, and if people had been listening to words of Christ, they should not have returned. Okay, they should have
Right.
known that, and so big trouble is coming, and the Jews that are there are going to get driven out and beaten. In my, that's scripture. I'm giving it to you straight not happy for a lot of people, and a lot of Protestant evangelical people say, "What in the world?
That's
We
right.
thought that God did it." Well, God didn't do it. They
No.
did it, and they wanted land, but they don't care about God. And so long, folks, because God is going to have a group of people in the end time. That's what Ezekiel 37th chapter is. There are dry bones. I don't know if you, when you're in Sunday school, but I remember them bones, them dry bones,
Yes.
them bones, them.
Yes.
The dry
Yes.
bones come together after a shaking in verse 7. That's Ezekiel 37th chapter. The great shaking is the earthquake, and it's going to bring bones together. And God asked Ezekiel, "Can the bones live?" And Ezekiel says, "I don't know, Lord, but you know." And they did. They got sinew, they got breath, and so on. And also in that chapter are two sticks, one for Judah, Jews who accept the Messiah, and one stick for Israel, Christians who accept the biblical laws of Moses, because that's what Elijah is supposed to do. If you read Malachi 4, 4, and 5, the
Yes.
laws of Moses are to be remembered with statutes and judgments. Behold, I send you Elijah. And Christ said Elijah is going to restore all things before he comes. So we can be a participant in that if we understand that those statutes, we you know, sometimes we have an idea, well, we can work our way to heaven by keeping the law. No, we can't do that. But if we do the best we can, God will give us a new heart to do the things right and to be saved and be protected by him. And so that's the context of the new covenant promise, basically, that and it includes the statutes and judgments. I'll give it to you from Ezekiel 36, the chapter before this. It's 3 dozen chapters, 36, and 2 dozen verses. Verse 24 says, "I'll take you from among all nations, gather you into your own land. Then I'll sprinkle clean water on you, and you'll be clean. I'll give you a new heart, put my spirit in you, and cause you to walk in my statutes and judgments, and you'll dwell in the land that I gave your fathers." And guess what? It's not about America.
That's right.
America is going down. It says um, in Jeremiah 30, verse 3, it's in one verse, it says, "Lo, the days come, saith the Lord, I'll bring again the captivity of my people, Israel and Judah." And I believe that's Israel, Christians who accept the laws of the Jewish laws. We call them Jewish laws. They're God's laws given by Moses. And the Judah is Jews who accept Messiah. And in verse 11, it says, "I'm with you to save you, though I make a full end of all other nations." So America is included. In fact, as a head of gold in Daniel 2, it's probably the first one to go down. Millions of people think America is the land of opportunity. It's a land of gold. Well, guess what?
It's
That head
not.
of gold was the first one in Daniel 2 to go. And so I believe that when the earth quakes and the heavens shake, that the San Andreas Fault, which was part of the signs in 2015. Not only was the Pope in Congress, not only was gay marriage in the Supreme Court, not only was peace and safety, the sun was darkened on a rare solar eclipse on the equinox and a blood moon on Passover. All of those things with San Andreas movie released. Well, if you saw the movie, I didn't see it. I don't generally go to movies, but it's going to be serious for Southern California with LA, Hollywood, which has done so much to export every kind of sin to the world, is going to get punished. And I believe some other places will get punished as well. Won't have time to talk about that. Don't know how much time we have right
We're good. We're good.
now. Okay.
So our next question would be, how will it end?
Well, it will end with God getting his group of people. The earthquake is encoded 4 different ways in Revelation. Okay, um, and one of the ways every Christian knows, if they've accepted the Lord, it says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." Gentle Jesus is always there knocking. Good meaning. It's not a bad meaning, but that's not the only meaning of that text, because the ancient church of Laodicea, where he knocked, was materialistic and lukewarm, just kept Christ outside knocking, so to speak, and it ended in an earthquake. So the earthquake is encoded as a knock. But the wedding parable has a knock, okay? In Luke 12, verse 36, it says, when he comes from the wedding and knocks, we're to open immediately. Well, here's where this rule of first use comes in again, because where a word or phrase is first found, it has a meaning we need to understand. And immediately is first found in Matthew 4th chapter, when Christ called James and John to be his disciples. They immediately left the ship and their father to follow him. And my point is that when Christ knocks for us, we're supposed to open immediately. It means leave the ship, your job, your livelihood, and your close family ties that might prevent you from doing God's will. Bring them along if you can. If we can talk to them about the wedding and the opportunities that will be ours. The wedding is a life-changing event for everybody. I don't care if you get it right or you get it wrong. It's life-changing.
It's life-changing.
And the point is that if we do it right, we can have Christ as the bridegroom. And Luke, I think there's a synthesis of the wedding parables, and we want to put them all together to understand them. Luke 12, I've heard sermons on Matthew 25, the 10 virgins, and the parable of the wedding garment, and how in the King James Bible it says the remnant scorned the invitation to the wedding feast until the king heard about how his messengers were being treated, and he sent out his armies and burned up their city. Okay. Now, I'm not going to tell you everything right here as to what I know and believe, but I believe that's going to happen for real next spring. And in fact, while I say next spring, let me say this. Luke's wedding parable has triple Passover imageries. Like in Luke 12:35, it says, have your loins girded. Well, Israel and Egypt had their loins girded. It was Passover time. They were ready to leave. Okay. And then it says to be watching. Watching has come from the Greek word Gregorio, meaning be awake. And we can't be awake every night. That's a health issue. But Passover was the only night in the year that they were supposed to be awake. Okay. And Christ even did that with his disciples. He said, watch with me. Could you not watch 1 hour? That was the Last Supper night on the eve of Passover, when it was appropriate to do that. And Israel did that in Egypt. And because they were watching, God spared them. They'd put the blood on the doorposts. We don't have to put blood on the doorposts now. Christ has put his blood on the cross for us. Right. But we do need to watch to show that we're in tune, we're watching, and to be protected. And the goodman, if he'd have known, would have watched, not suffered his house to be broken, in Matthew 24, verse 43. See? So Christ is going to come as a thief like God came as a thief. God came as a thief invisibly at night to Egypt, and he took their slaves. Christ is going to come invisibly also. And we won't see Christ. It's not about coming in the sky, but it's not about a rapture to heaven either, okay? It's right. Because God took Israel to Sinai for a covenant. And he said, if you keep my covenant, you'll be a kingdom. And we can be his kingdom for the last 7 years if we do it right, okay? And it's not about going to heaven quick. It's because he'll come at the end of the 7 years. But we have to stand up against the beast power. And when you can't buy or sell, we got to say this isn't right. You know, I believe that God has a plan for us, and it's in my books. But we're not going to spill all the beans right now.
Yeah, we can't spill it all, because y'all, those of you all that are Kindle Unlimited readers, y'all go right now and get that book and get it unlimited. Yes.
How much time do we have?
Oh, we are fine. We're fine. Actually, if I have to do this in 2 parts, we're going to keep going.
Okay. Well, I want to do a half hour now and a half hour on something else later.
You got it. So what is the outcome for U.S.?
Well, I think we're the head of gold in Daniel 2, that will be actually Daniel was life spared. They were coming to execute the wise men because the king had a dream. He couldn't remember what it was. He thought his wise men should be able to tell him the dream and the interpretation. The wise men were pretty shrewd. They said, well, tell us the dream. We'll tell you the interpretation. Well, king couldn't tell him the dream. And he says, you guys are going to, you're supposed to know the gods. Tell me the dream and the interpretation. When they came to Daniel, say the execution's coming, Daniel said, "Why is the king so hasty? Give us a little time." They pray. I'm sure they had a prayer meeting that night, and God showed Daniel the dream. He was ushered into the king the next day. He told him the dream. The king said, "Yes, that's what I saw," and it was head of gold, an image that the king worshipped almost. But it was, why the chest of and arms of silver, why the thighs of brass and legs of iron, feet of iron and clay, and a stone comes and smashes it. And the words with that are, "In the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom." I just told you that when we go to, Israel went to the wilderness, and when they made a covenant, they became a kingdom. God's going to do repeat things when Christ is going to punish America with a knock. I believe we have to open immediately for a prenuptial agreement, a wedding feast, where we offer God the things that Christ, the things that he really wants. See, God got an ignorant bride at Sinai. They worshiped a calf 40 days later. Must
Wow.
not happen to Christ. And there are topics that we need to understand, like the statutes and judgments. And for that Elijah is supposed to restore in Matthew 4, verse 4 and 5, it says, "Remember the law of Moses with statutes and judgments. Behold, I send you Elijah." And those statutes and judgments have a sevenfold emphasis in Ezekiel 20, verse 11 to 24. Well, a sevenfold emphasis is like, reminds us of Revelation. 7 churches, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 thunders. 7 times is a focus to say this is end time truth for us. And so the statutes and judgments, we will need them, okay? And other topics too that have a sevenfold emphasis. And so I have a book, Earthquake and the 7 Seals, and it's not expensive either. And you can get the on Kindle. If you've got
Yeah.
their special package, it's free. You can just
Yeah.
read it.
Just
So
read it.
anyway, but my point is, I'm giving you something that is high value, because in Luke's wedding parable, for the servant who is so doing, when he comes, he will make him ruler over all that he has. My name is Ruhling. I wanted to understand how that happens.
Ooh,
I've
that's
been,
powerful.
I've been blessed to understand it, and I believe that if we do what it says, we can be ruler over all that he has. That God is looking for 144,000 who can be his special people, his Elijahs in the end time. It's not about Elijah specifically, because John the Baptist was Elijah in his time, but that was just to Israel. The world is much bigger now with people everywhere. God's going to have 144,000 as his strategy. We think God is losing right now. If you watch a Super Bowl, I have seen the Super Bowl won on the last play of the game.
Yes.
And I believe God is going to win in the last 7 years, the end time zone of when he gives power to his witnesses. In Revelation 11:3, they will have the power of Moses and Elijah in verse 6. And then the beast comes to make war. And the beast will get equal time, 3.5 years. It actually says 42 months in Revelation 13, verse 5. But we're gonna be there soon. How much time do we have?
We have about 4.5 minutes. And
Okay.
so I guess the question I'm gonna say is, you say what's coming as huge. Christ said it would be as the days of Noah. Can you
Yes.
elaborate on that?
Very good. Glad you asked that quickly. Specifically, I most people do not know this now because it seems ancient history to us. But in May 19, 1780 was a dark day. You could Google it. It was unexplainably dark. At noon, the cows came in from the field. The chickens went to roost. People needed a lamp to read the newspaper at noontime. That was in New England, and New Englanders, some Christians took it as a sign Christ was coming. Well, he didn't come, but 200 years later, another dark day, also on May 19, because Mount St. Helens erupted the day before and put ash into the sky, and overnight the wind carried the ash to 3 northwestern states instead of the northeast this time, and it was darkened. Okay, only God can do those things on the same date, 200 years apart. And my point is, he's marking May 19, and next spring is May 19 on a special, unique time. It will be as the days of Noah on the day that Noah entered the ark for safety. And I believe everybody ought to know this. In Noah's time, God wanted everybody to know the message that there was going to be a flood. And Noah, it seemed crazy that Noah was nuts. It had never rained. Okay, but it will be a similar situation when I believe Christ gave signs to flee Jerusalem. I believe we need to get out of cities. People are in cities worldwide. They think they're Christians and trying to witness for God, but there's going to be judgment falling on cities very soon, starting, I believe, with Jerusalem again. Okay, next spring, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, time to get out of the city. I would recommend people putting their place up for sale before then, because you can't sell. Christ in the wedding parable of Luke 12:32 said, "Fear not, little flock. It's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell what you have." He told that to the rich young ruler, and we think the rich young ruler was dumb. Now it's our turn. We
Now
get
it's
to
our
sell
turn.
what we have, and
Woo, you
be
guys.
ready.
I'm here to tell you, I'm so elated. We're going to get together again, and we're going to actually tap in a little bit more of the next time we're going to get together. We're going to actually offer this up for you, because I'm going to follow your books. Like, for those of you all that are watching today, as I stated, this is the book cover right here, How It All Ends, digital version available on Kindle Direct Unlimited. You can follow Mr. Richard Ruhling. I love the name Ruhling. It's no coincidence. Just like with us, She Will Heal. That's my name. She from Sherry, and Will from Williams. And even in the word Williams is she will, I am. So he said, I am healed and she will heal. And he's saying that healed people heal people. We hear hurt people all the time. But in this time, he had me to drop everything, get rid of everything. And he said, you're going to focus on she will, I am. And it was so powerful, because our names have such meaning. I want to thank you, Richard, for taking the time to come on here today.
I want to tell you one thing, and that is God, the King in Matthew 22 sends his servants to bid people to a wedding feast. So tell your friends. Be here next week again, too. We'll talk about different things, but it all relates to end time stuff. So invite people. We need to let our light shine. Thank you.
You better know it. I thank you so much. I look forward to tapping into this book. And once again, those of you all that are on Kindle Unlimited, it's only $11.99 a month. First 3 months free. Get in there and download these books, y'all, because I don't know about y'all, but I want to know how it all ends. Thank you so
Hallelujah.
much. You got
Thank
it.
you.
You got it. God bless you.
Amen. Both to you.
Yes, sir. So you guys, this was an amazing time that I just had with Dr. Richard Ruhling. And this is your opportunity to know that this is in the end times. A lot of people are always returning back to Genesis, because we already know what happened in Genesis. You know what happened in Exodus and Leviticus. And it seems like that chapter, that book of Leviticus, you get all caught up and like, whoo, all this begot that. But God said in this time, you ought to open up that Bible and start in Revelation, because we're in the end times. And what is God going to use you for? I thank you all for watching. You can also watch this live on YouTube at She Will Heal Ministry. God bless all of you all, because remember, we need to know how it all ends. God bless.